Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome to the channel for the first time. Today I'm going to talk about common mistakes that people make when they have an L5-S1 disc bulge or herniation. But before we do that, if you appreciate videos like this, then all I ask for in return is for you to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't done that already. Now, doing that really helps the channel tremendously, and in return, if you have any questions or comments, put them in the comment section and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Thanks so much. Now, let's begin. The first thing to know is that up to 85% of us will get back pain at some point in our lives. So it's very, very common, especially in people with scoliosis. Now, most of us, this back pain will just clear up in a few days, and it will be most likely from a pulled muscle or a ligament. However, for some, the pain can be coming from a disc bulge or herniation. Now, in the olden days, we used to call this a slipped disc, but that's not really what happens. In a herniation, the gel-like liquid that provides shock absorption and mobility to the middle of the disc can get squeezed out. It's a little bit like the jam coming out of a donut. The jam can then push on nerves, causing pain to go down someone's leg, and we commonly call this sciatica. Now, this disc herniation can be seen on an MRI like this. But there's a stage before that. Before we get the jam coming out of the donut, we also get a disc bulge. Now, this pushes on the outer fibers of the disc and it can tear them. This bulging and tearing can result in back pain. But here's the interesting thing. As we get older, these bulges are very common and they don't always cause pain. In fact, in our 30s, 29% of people have them with no pain, and this increases to 60% in our 50s and 84% in our 80s. Now, this shows that disc bulges aren't always something to worry about, but they are more common than you think. If you want to know the top exercises I recommend for people who have a disc bulge or herniation, then I'll link that to a video in the description below. Okay, I'm going to use my spine here to show you how this works mechanically. So you can see here there's a little red area on this disc. This represents a disc bulge, and it's pushing out and can be pushing onto the nerve root here. And if it got a little bit bigger or moved up and down, then that would be a disc herniation. So what we're talking about is this thing here happening in this bottom disc here, the L5-S1 disc. And it happens right in here, in this little gap in here. All right, so you can imagine there's a solid bone here and a more movable area here. All right, so this whole area is the pelvis, and it doesn't move a whole bunch. This here area here, the lumbar spine, it does move a little bit. And so when we have stiffness in the hips and we have a continued flexed posture, then we can get this pinching on the front of the discs and a pushing of the actual nucleus pulposus backwards. And so continued flexed posture. So let's say you're sitting on a really soft couch, your pelvis is tucked up underneath you, and you're got a lot of pushing down onto that L5-S1. Let's say you're driving for a living and your seat is very comfortable, it's tucked up underneath you, maybe there's some vibrations and so on. Again, it's going to all come into that L5-S1 disc. Anything coming through the legs and through the pelvis, the first thing it's going to hit, L5-S1 disc. That's one of the reasons why it's the most commonly injured disc. But also, it's the transition point between the pelvis and the lumbar spine, and so it has to deal with a lot of different torsions and stresses, which makes it the most commonly injured disc as well. The second most common mistake is people who stop exercising. Sure, there's going to be a sort of a natural propensity or a natural urge to stop things for a couple of days when you initially hurt your back. That is understandable and somewhat necessary. However, our spine has long muscles that go up and down the back. They're called the paraspinal muscles, but also we have these things called muscular slings. These muscular slings wrap around through our abdominals, up into our back, into our shoulder blades, down into our butt, and down into our legs as well. And the best way to get those muscular slings working is to actually walk. And so walking is key when you have a bad back. What walking does is it allows us to lift our head up, tuck our chin in, work on getting the angle of the pelvis back this way, the angle of the neck to be arched, same as the lower back, and the middle part of the back to have a nice kyphosis in it. So it's lordosis here, kyphosis here, lordosis here. These three arches, when working properly, help the discs. Then when we move, we actually step forward with one side, step forward with the other side, as well as wiggle our hips left and right. All those movements, those three-dimensional movements, pump the inflammation out of the problem area, the L5-S1, and help flood it with anti-inflammatory liquids, the blood and so on, to help with the healing of that disc. So walking is a great way to heal your lower back. Now, if you don't walk, you're not going to get that opportunity. If you just lie in bed, you actually make things worse, not only because you're not walking, but you're getting weaker. Your muscles aren't getting the exercise they need. Your heart and lungs aren't getting the exercise they need. And over time, this weakness, even though it feels better in the moment, this weakness is going to lead to future problems. So a lot of people back in the day were told to bed rest. They herniated a disc. The doctor said, you know what, take it easy for a little bit, lie down for a week. So they go to bed, they lie down for a week. Fine. Their back sort of heals up a little bit, then they get out of bed, but now the muscular slings aren't ready to take on the forces that they're going to be exposed to, so they go back to doing whatever they were doing, and bam, they hurt their back again, and this time it is worse. Now, the best predictor of lower back pain, strange enough, is lower back pain. So if a person's had lower back pain in the past, they're more likely to get it again, and that was one of the reasons, is that bed rest was prescribed for people with back pain. So don't do that. Get out there and do some walking. The third common mistake I see is overstretching. Now, it feels like the pain is actually in the back of your leg and sometimes down into your foot. And so some people massage their calf, or they roll their feet, or they feel like they're stretching it. But actually what happens when you stretch it is this. You take your leg forwards and you end up pulling on that nerve. And you take your head this way. So let's say we're stretching like this. I'm actually making the whole sciatic nerve tighter. And as it gets tighter, it pushes on that disc bulge, pushes into the inflammation, essentially making it worse. Now, there are some other ways that we can release off that lower back, things like neural flossing, which I show in some other videos, and I'm going to link those in the description below, that can actually be used, judiciously and wisely to get that nerve root moving again. But just to stretch the hamstrings because they're painful, just to stretch the calf because they're painful, it actually can have a detrimental effect and not be the right thing to do for a L5-S1 disc herniation. Another common mistake I see people make is actually not drinking enough water. So the discs are hydrophilic. What that means is they like water. In fact, at night, they bring in the water into the discs, which actually makes us taller in the morning. So if you notice that, so you're always a little bit taller in the mornings, at the end of the day, you're slightly shorter. And that's because in the mornings, the discs are all full of water, and gravity and movement during the day pushes them out, and then the cycle begins all over again. That's how the discs actually get their nutrients. It comes in and comes out, uses gravity and movement. But if you don't drink enough water, then what happens is the discs don't get everything they need, but also the body starts looking for other water supplies, and it actually can pull stuff out of the discs. So this is actually a problem that happens as we get older as well. When you're young, the discs are actually quite large, there's a good space between the vertebrae, and when we're old, they actually get squished flatter, and the extra water has been taken out of them. So drinking a lot of water can help push that sort of almost natural effect further off down the line and keep your back stronger and healthier for longer. But on the other side, drinking water can help flush out any toxins, flush out inflammation as well. And so drinking water is just a really good thing for the body. And the way I recommend people do that is drinking first thing in the morning. So you put a nice big glass of water next to your bed. When you wake up, drink the whole glass of water, and it's not going to be hot, it's not going to be cold, it's actually going to be absorbed very quickly through the stomach. Because interestingly, the stomach will almost absorb body temperature water without question. It will just bring that straight into the system because it knows how good it is for us. However, if it's hot, it has to cool it down. If it's cold, it has to heat it up, which delays absorption. Also, if it has anything in it, even a drop of lime juice in it, the body will sense that and treat it as a food and slow down its absorption. Now, the last mistake I see people make a lot is obsessing about their MRI reports. Now, MRIs are useful to confirm an initial diagnosis, for example, but they shouldn't be taken as gospel. In fact, there's actually a bit of a sordid history with the MRI machine companies and their sales reps colluding a little bit with radiologists and surgeons to increase surgical numbers. And if you don't believe me, you should read the book Crooked: Outwitting the Back Pain Industry and Getting on the Path to Healing by the investigative journalist Catherine Rabin. It is truly eye-opening. Just one little clip from the book. She quotes a study in there where they took one person who had back pain to 10 different MRI centers. In those 10 different MRI centers, she had 84 different diagnoses. I think it was only one of which was consistent across the board. And she was offered surgery in multiple locations. So what happens is the MRI report is interpreted by a radiologist. And so there is an error that can happen between the actual imaging and the report. Now, the imaging itself is taking a 3D image of the inside of our bodies and putting that onto a 2D screen using an algorithm. Those algorithms are proprietary to the MRI companies, and they are different. So technology changes, each company is different, each MRI machine is different. So the way we see things is simply the way it's produced by the algorithm. Where it's interpreted is to do with our understanding of that as a radiologist. And then as a doctor, we read the report, or as a clinician like myself, we read the report and then we make an assumption off that. So there's lots of different ways that we can actually get it wrong with MRIs. However, they are useful to rule out things like a cancer or something like that. But when it comes to back pain, not really that useful. In fact, some medical societies like the doctors in Alberta are actually not routinely giving MRIs for back pain. They actually cause more damage than they do good. And I'm not talking about damage to the spine, it's actually damage to the mind. And that's a very, very interesting topic when it comes to back pain. So yes, if you've had an MRI, read it, understand it, but it will show every little thing that is wrong with your back, and some of those things actually might not even be there, which is interesting. Whenever I meet a surgeon, I always ask them, I say, what does the actual joint look like when you go in there versus the MRI that you had with, you made your decision to go in and operate? And a lot of the time they look at me and they say, yeah, it's usually different. And then they make an excuse or something. Oh, well, the MRI was 2 months before the surgery, so the joint may have changed between then. But actually, sometimes the MRI is not as accurate as the doctor might like it to be. So take your MRI with a little bit of pinch of salt, use it as a diagnosis, use it as perhaps something that can tell us the time frame for healing, but do the exercises, avoid making it worse, and your lower back pain will get better. Okay, I'm going to wrap this video up here, and I really hope that you found it helpful. And if you try the exercises, please let us know how it goes in the comments section below. If you really want my opinion on your specific case, send me an email or a friend request on Instagram and Facebook. My email is in the description below. Don't forget to give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Click on that notification bell and send my channel to a friend who you think will appreciate this content as well. Thank you for doing those things. Your support makes a huge difference and helps me get the information out there. Also, as you may know, I help people recover from illness and injury using a combination of specific exercises and lifestyle medicine, but I have a focus on scoliosis. Now, if you have scoliosis or back pain and want to talk to me, I invite you to book a free call and I'll see if I can help. Just follow the link in the description below or check out my scoliosis mobility course at scoliosiscorrectionprotocol.com. Stay tuned for my next video, which will be up soon.